This is the Bringing Business to Retail podcast, and today we are talking all about the email marketing secrets that no one else is telling you. Hey there, and welcome to today's episode of the podcast. Can you hear that little spring in my voice? Well, that is because I'm a little bit excited because as I record this episode, I am just 2 days away from a family vacation over to Las Vegas and Seattle. Now, for many reasons, we haven't actually taken much of a family vacation for probably about a year now. My husband Ed has been overseas and Lana has been on a scout camp a few times, and sometimes Ed goes with her because he is her scout leader. And I've been over to the US and traveling for work, but as a family, we haven't had much of a chance to go anywhere together. This year has been seriously busy for all of us. And I don't know if that's just because Lana's getting a little bit older. She's just about to turn 11 and she's very independent. So when you couple that with Scouts and Ed and I traveling for work, it's always a bit of a juggle to try and find the time for us to go away as a family. We're heading over to Las Vegas first, and that's because Ed's actually gone over there for a work trip. And we have not been to Vegas since Lana was a baby. I think she was about 9 years old, and there's a picture of her on the strip at 3 a.m. in the morning, suffering from jet lag. Her and Ed went for a walk outside the Bellagio fountains. So she doesn't really remember any of the glitz and glamour that comes with being in Las Vegas. So I'm sure that she's going to be suitably impressed. Now, the only thing I wanted to do this time round was a helicopter ride over the Grand Canyon. Last time we went, Lana was so little that it just wasn't feasible. But this time, Ed and I were saying, yep, that's the one thing that we want to do. However, the lovely little 11-year-old has decided that nope, no way is she getting on a helicopter. So I'm not really sure what we're going to do there. Everybody tells me it is fantastic to go through the Grand Canyon in a helicopter. So we'll see how it goes. Maybe she'll change her mind once we get there. Now, after a few days in Las Vegas, we're heading up to Seattle. Now, you may remember that we had the gorgeous Sarah McNally from Constellation Co. on the podcast a little while ago, and I don't know if it is my love of 90s grunge metal and the Seattle sound scene, or if it's just how beautiful that Sarah made Seattle seem, that made me think, never been there before? It's time to go now. So after a few days in Vegas, we're heading up to Seattle. And apart from popping in to see Sarah's gorgeous store, I have nothing on my to-do list. Actually, I lie. I do have something on my to-do list, and that is to try and do more Instagram stories. If you are not following me over on Instagram, I would love it if you could. My Instagram handle is the Selena Knight, and I'm really putting an effort into seeing what works and what doesn't on Instagram. And we do have an interview coming up with an Instagram expert in a few weeks, but I am already putting his tips into place on my Instagram page. So if you love hanging out on Instagram, come and follow me over at the Selena Knight. Now, you may have already guessed it, but this month on the podcast, we are talking all about email marketing. And there's a reason for this. Quite simply, email is still the top marketing platform when it comes to return on investment. So return on investment is how much money you get back for how much money you invest. But I don't love email because it makes money. Well, I do love email because it makes money. I also love it because it can build a connection with your customer. Now, I remember that I used to be great at collecting emails on my website. But when my business coach at the time suggested collecting emails in store, I looked at him like he had 3 heads. I thought, actually, I probably said to him because I was very forthright, was why the heck would someone who comes in and visits my store in person ever want to receive emails? I know, you're probably thinking, Sal, looking back, I realize how naive I was. Begrudgingly, and I had to do it because I was paying this guy a lot of money to help me build my store. So begrudgingly, we actually started to collect email addresses in store and we started building our customer database. But the funny thing was, probably 9.5 out of 10 people, like 95% of people, were more than happy to hand over their information. And given that we were a baby store, generally the people who chose not to hand over their information were people who were buying a one-off gift for a work colleague or a one-off gift for somebody who was a friend of a friend. They weren't really likely to frequent our store more often. So once we started doing this, I was really surprised about the number of times that customers would come in store and ask about a specific product that had been featured in the newsletter or some funny story or anecdote or staff profile that we put into the newsletter. It really was an insight to see how many people want to stay connected with your store. It doesn't matter if you are a retail store with a physical presence or if you're e-commerce or if you have both. The great thing about a customer database of emails is nobody can take them away with you. The same of which can't be said for building your customer database on somebody else's platform. And let me tell you a quick story. I had one retail store that I worked with who had this exact same thing happen. Their fashion store had built a tribe of tens of thousands of followers on Instagram. I think they had something like 50 or 60,000 followers on Instagram. They did all of their marketing via Instagram. But then one day, bam, their account was flagged and deleted. They had no idea why and no way to get in touch with Instagram. Absolutely no recourse of all. And worst of all, no way to get all of those customers that they'd spent years attracting, no way to get them back. They only had about 1,000 people on their email list, so they couldn't even let all of those followers know what had happened. They literally had to build their whole business back up from scratch. And as you can imagine, that had a huge effect on their cash flow. At the end of the day, if Instagram suspends your account or if Facebook blocks your page, you can always still email your customers if you've taken the time and effort to build that customer database. All that hard work that you put in to build a tribe, it's not going to be lost if something happens to your social media pages. Now, over the years, I've spent a lot of time and money building customer databases, and I want to share some simple email secrets that other retail marketers just aren't telling you. Now, let's be honest, these might not really be secrets, but I do feel compelled to do this episode after seeing a so-called retail expert tell their newsletter subscribers that in order to be successful, you only have to send out an email once a week or a couple of times a month. Now, I try my hardest to keep on top of what's working right now in the retail and e-commerce space all around the world. And that is why I'm always learning. I'm always attending conferences. I'm always talking to industry experts. And the podcast is just one of those avenues on how I share this information. And if you're going to be a marketing expert, if you're going to be advising your clients in the retail and e-commerce space about what's working, you have to be doing these things because the landscape today is very, very different to what it was even 5 and 10 years ago. And if you're not keeping up, then you will fall behind fast. And I don't know about you, but I know that my clients certainly can't afford to do that. So this episode is not about doom and gloom. Let's jump in to my email marketing secrets that no one else is telling you. The first one is you're probably not sending anywhere near enough emails. This year over at Traffic and Conversion, which is, as far as I'm concerned, the world's leading digital marketing conference, I remember sitting in a session about what was converting for e-commerce. And when Perry Belcher, now if you don't know who he is one of the co-founders of the digital marketing team, but he also has several multi-million-dollar e-commerce businesses, mostly in the survivalist and prepping space. So the guy knows what's working. And when he got up and said that the new benchmark for email marketing was 3 emails a week, I swear I nearly fell off my seat, along with a lot of the people in the crowd. But as Perry went on to explain, it actually started to make total sense. So do you want to know why you need to be sending around 3 emails a week if you're a retail or e-commerce business? Well, here's the answer. Most people send out an email based on the day and the time that they think their audience will open it. Now, sure, you can manipulate this slightly with smart sending or predictive sending options inside your email service provider, but getting your email opened is still quite hit and miss when you use these services. So let me give you an example. Let's say that I am your target customer and you send your emails out on a Wednesday night. Well, right now, Wednesday night for me, that is my favorite yoga night. I love yin yoga. And in case you don't know what yin yoga is, it's a type of yoga that is very, very passive. You hold poses for around 2 to 5 minutes. And it sounds easy, but in fact, it really can be quite difficult. Some of these poses are very, very awkward to get into, and they can be very painful to hang around in. But it is so relaxing. It's actually almost meditative. And I come away feeling very, very grounded afterwards. So that's my Wednesday night. And I'm not going to be looking at my emails when I get home at 8:30, 8:45. But this is not about me. This is back to you and your emails that you're sending me, right? Which really should be about me as the customer. Okay, so you're sending those emails out on a Wednesday night. And even though I love what you sell, by the time I get around to opening my email on a Thursday morning, I can tell you now that there's probably 150 emails for me to sift through. And I have to say that honestly, your email is likely to either get lost in my bulk delete, or maybe it might just escape the trash bin. And I'm thinking to myself, I'll get around to looking at that when I have some free time. But then life gets in the way and work gets in the way, and a week later, I delete it. And this happens every single week because you're always sending out your emails on a Wednesday. Now, let's think about what would happen if you sent me 3 emails a week. Now, sure, I might trash 1 or maybe even 2 of them. But in this instance, quantity is important. Sending different types of emails at different times and on different days gives you a much higher chance of actually getting through my overwhelming inbox. It's just the law of probabilities. Does that make sense? The more you send, the more I have a chance of finding one that hits my inbox at the exact right moment so I can open it. Now, of course, you can't just go and blast irrelevant crap. If you're using this tactic, it actually means putting together an email strategy. And on top of that, you're going to need to monitor what's working and what isn't. You need to be testing and measuring always. Maybe your customers just want sales emails. Maybe they want a little bit more. They want to know about the people behind your business. They want to know more about the purpose of your business. You need to be looking at the statistics to see what works and when it works and do more of it. Now, other experts, and I say that with air quotes, they might tell you that sending 1 email a week or 2 emails a month is enough. But I have to say, from my experience analyzing a bunch of e-commerce marketing funnels, if you are only sending out 1 to 2 emails a month, you are literally missing out on tens of thousands of dollars each month. Can you hear that noise in the background? That's me stomping the table with my fist as I get a little bit ranty pants because I am so passionate about this. And this leads me to my next tip, because you're probably thinking, everyone will just unsubscribe if I send more than 1 email, right? So my next tip is to use segments. So if your first thought when I said send more emails was, but I've spent all my time and effort building these subscribers and this customer database, I'm just going to lose them. They're just going to unsubscribe. By segmenting your audience, you can actually allow people to unsubscribe from specific types of emails or specific sequences rather than unsubscribing altogether. Now, let's say, for example, that you write a blog Using segmentation and tagging, you can allow your customers to just unsubscribe from any blog-related emails. If that's not what they're interested, don't give it to them. And this is really important because the number of people who open your emails affects your email deliverability. So if you're sending people stuff they don't want to read, then all the servers out there that send your emails like Gmail and Outlook, if they can see that a bunch of people aren't opening that email, you are going to get demoted in email deliverability land. And you don't want that. So if you can segment out your customer list and send the content that your customers want to see, you'll get a higher open rate, which means you're much likely to end up in an actual inbox rather than a junk folder or the Gmail promotions folder. But it can also get way more advanced than just allowing people to unsubscribe. Let's say that you sell outdoor adventure gear. You can allow your customers to self-segment, showing women just female-specific products, for example. Or you could use behavioral-based segmentation to show customers the types of products that they're likely to be interested in. Now, once upon a time, we were very limited to having a section on our website that just said, people who bought this also bought, or you might also like. Now, sure, you can have those things on your website, and you should have those things on your website. But when it comes to email marketing, AI, or artificial intelligence, it works away in the background to look at browsing and buying behavior, and it can segment your customers for you. And it's a feature that most independent retail and e-commerce brands simply overlook. Now, you've heard me talk before about Klaviyo email marketing system. I'll pop a link in the show notes to it, but it can do all of this. It's not an extra feature, it's just part of the package. We could literally do a whole month of episodes on how to segment your customer database. But let me just give you a handful of segments that you could start with. People who added to cart but didn't buy. Customers who've recently purchased. And hopefully you heard the podcast that we just did last week with Louise Griffiths, and she talked all about how you can leverage that segment. Customers who've purchased more than twice in the last month. Those high return customers, what can you offer those people that you don't offer anybody else? Customers who spent more than, say, $500 in the last 3 months. Again, people who are high value customers, what are you offering them for being a VIP? You don't need to give the same offering to everybody. Using segments, you can actually target specific offers based on people's buying behavior. And of course, my last segment that I would love you to implement is using email marketing to gather reviews. Okay, asking for reviews is not self-centered. And too many retailers feel like they're imposing on their customers when they ask for a review. But think about it for a moment. You, as a customer, when you buy something you love or you deal with a company who are just freaking awesome, you're really happy to let other people know about it, right? You'll comment on posts on Facebook, you'll refer them. So as a business, why do so many retail and e-commerce store owners just feel icky when they ask for a review? I don't know. In truth, when we actually give a review as a customer, it's a form of status and purchase validation. Inside of Scale Your Store, we talk a lot about behavioral psychology and why people buy, and this is one of them. People love to have their purchases validated. They love to have their actions that they've taken validated. Because secretly, as humans, we all want to know that we've made a great choice. And reviews are our way of getting other people to give us feedback that we've made the right choice. Now, reviews are not just about making your business look good. 55% of shoppers say that online reviews influence their buying decision. So if you're not soliciting reviews via email marketing, statistically, you could be losing up to half of your sales. And I don't know about you, but that is not a place that I want to be. Now, reviews are also UGC, or what we call in marketing land, user-generated content. And user-generated content can not only beef up your SEO because you're getting actual long-tailed keywords that your customer uses in real life. But in addition, Google favors UGC because it provides search engines with new and relevant content. And think about it. If you have people adding reviews every day or every second day, Google can see that your page is constantly being updated. And even better, after attending the online retailer conference this month, what I have heard is that Google will start to index those reviews as well, even going so far as using them for voice-related search. So think about all the Amazon Alexas and the Google Homes that are in people's houses. Reviews are the words that your customers already use. So user-generated content can help you sell more products without you having to do anything other than send out an automated email asking for them to give a review. Now, user-generated content or reviews are what we like to call social proof. And I think one of the biggest reasons I like them, apart from the SEO and the Google juice that you get, is that quite simply, reviews help people get across the purchasing barrier. Now, bad reviews shouldn't necessarily be removed. I've been doing a little bit of online shopping because Ed is arriving in America before we are, and you may have heard that I've lost 10 kilos. I actually don't have any summer clothes that fit. So I've been online and I've done quite a bit of shopping to be delivered to his hotel room. But the great thing about sites that have user reviews is I can see positives and negatives. So for example, I was looking at a dress and one person had said that the fit wasn't very good, and she had said how tall and what her weight was. And then somebody else had said that it was a fantastic fit and it came just above the knee and it was great around the bust. And she'd put her height and her size in as well. And I could actually see that I was more along the lines of the second person when it comes to my height and weight. So there was a much better chance that it would fit me. Whereas the first person was a good 4 inches shorter than what I am. And so I could see why they didn't like the dress. So that helped me get across my purchasing barrier. This is particularly important for things like fashion, makeup, electrical consumer goods, all those things that people have questions about. Reviews are going to get all those questions answered for you by your actual customers. And I don't know about you, but if I can make more money without having to do anything extra, that is a process that I like to implement. Now, the stores and the brands that are crushing it when it comes to selling online, they embrace email marketing. They know that it brings in a significant amount of revenue on autopilot. Revenue that doesn't cost any extra money in marketing and advertising. It means that the return that you're going to get, the ROI, is always going to increase because you've already spent the money to get that customer's details. Anything after that is pure profit. You're not spending more money trying to get new customers. And this is revenue that's being generated 24/7. So there you have it. My 3 not so secret secrets about how email marketing will help you to grow your retail or e-commerce store. And just a quick recap, the first one is to try sending out more emails more often. If you can get there, as much as 3 a week. The second one was to start segmenting out your email database. And the third one was use your email marketing to ask for reviews. Now, each of those points can be quite an operation to implement and then to test and measure. So the rule of any A/B testing is to pick one of those first and just try implementing that. Don't try to implement everything at once. It will just be too overwhelming. Perhaps you'll start with sending 1 or 2 more emails a week. Or maybe you'll just start asking for reviews. Maybe you're super left-brained and you love segmenting lists. That's something I like doing. Whichever you choose, take the time to sit down, map it out, and implement it properly, and make sure that you're testing to see what works and what doesn't. And of course, make sure you start leveraging the things that work. Now, before we wrap up, With around 350 episodes of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast recorded, I am going to take a little bit of my own advice here and ask that if you have loved this episode, I would be super grateful if you could jump over to Apple Podcasts or maybe Stitcher if that's where you listen and leave me a review. Just like I mentioned before, reviews help people to choose what it is they want to consume. And I would love to help more independent retail and e-commerce stores with the information that I share on this podcast. Okay, thank you so much for listening in, and I will see you here next week. Cheers.